would have thought that a cultural event or destination would bring movie stars into my life? I have always been enamored by movie stars. Perhaps it's the stage, the glamour, or the adventure of happy endings. Our family would often go to drive in movies. Since my parents were trying to learn English as a language, movies were a great way for them to learn the words. Then there was the idea of wishing upon a star, a movie star, but I was always too busy to go to movies as an adult. Once, when I went to Suriname, South America, to study the reproductive patterns of the sea turtle with my Wunderlust ideas, we had an opportunity to visit a local family in the village nearby. After some time, we were talking through a translator. We asked our translator to inquire whether they, as a family in South America, had any questions about our life as Americans. They said, no. That seemed a little unusual, so we asked the translator to explain why they were not that interested about life in America. He came back with the answer, we know all about America because we go to the movies. Well, after a few years, after college actually, I got a job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. My company was kind enough to pay the tuition for me to get an MBA. In my last semester of graduate school, I was challenged by my very last class. Statistics. I love numbers, but the way those formulas got put together just really wore me out. I was so stressed because I wanted to maintain my 4.0 GPA. My sister came to the rescue. She invited me to go to Verona, Italy with her and sing Verdi's Requiem with none other than Pavarotti. That was a good 3 months away, and it gave me plenty of time to learn the music we choir members would be singing. Now, singing is one of my favorite ways of engaging my airport, my lungs. Breathing in relieves stress and helps me learn a lot better, especially when it comes to statistics. Verona, Italy was great, but after our concert with Pavarotti, we traveled down to Florence. That is where my sister and I had the pleasure of visiting two of the most luxurious destination hotels that had historical significance. Both the Grand Hotel and the Excelsior Hotel were nestled in a large cul-de-sac. Both were way out of our price range. However, we did spend quite a bit of time roaming through the grand lobby, the gift shop, and just enjoyed the paintings that were hanging on the wall of historical nature. The very next year, the HIV Worldwide AIDS Conference was being held in Florence, Italy. Out of all the sales representatives across the United States, one person from the East Coast and one from the West Coast got to go, represent our company. One of my buddies was chosen from Boston, and I got to go from California. This was beautiful because once we were given the assignment, I wanted to line up our most important speakers from the West Coast to join me for dinner, along with the other HIV treaters that agreed to come. We had 5 of the most important doctors from the West Coast join me for that Thursday night dinner. This was so fun because it had been in Florence, Italy the year before, and I knew exactly where to take them for dinner. It was great making reservations for our table of 6 And at one of those historic hotels, I had learned about the year before. It was either the Grand Hotel or the Excelsior Hotel. Once at the conference, the crowds from international destinations were almost insurmountable. One of my favorite actresses, Elizabeth Taylor, she had dedicated her efforts towards the cause of HIV awareness and management. She was selected as the keynote speaker. And this was the night she was giving that presentation. The dinner had been booked at the historic Grand Hotel for 6 p.m. I got to the restaurant well before 6 so as not to be late. The crowds outside and traffic were so dense that my first doctor did not even arrive until almost 7 p.m. We had a great private chat and ordered some wine and appetizers to tie us over until the rest of the physicians trickled in. As they arrived, they had quite a bit to say to each other, and I was glad that they were having a wonderful time with their colleagues from the California coast. Just a little after 8 p.m., a very unexpected silence captured the room. My back was towards the entrance, but my doctors were staring over my shoulders and stunned as statues. As I leaned to see what had captured their attention, who should walk in but Elizabeth Taylor herself. She had been preceded by her 4 ladies in waiting and Larry Fortensky. They were situated 10 or so feet from behind us at the nearest table over my shoulder. The most striking aspect of Elizabeth Taylor's presence was how she showed up at the entrance of the room and simply sucked in all the oxygen. The evening was quiet from then on. The doctors continued their conversations regarding the HIV conference details, and we all left by 11 p.m. The next morning, as I was tending the product booth from our company, a note from one of my immunologists read, "Thank you so much for that enjoyable dinner last night at the Grand Hotel." And inviting Elizabeth Taylor was such a nice touch. I could not help but think how one cultural event in Florence served as the harbinger for another. Both of those events, with Pavarotti and Elizabeth Taylor, starred as a reward after a stressful semester of statistics. Yes, life is good.